Under attack, why staff members at the Falmouth Hospital were forced to run for cover today. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Bashan Brown. Also this evening, it doesn't matter the Contractor General on whether the next top cop should come from within or outside the JCF, and rejected rank and file cops turned down government's latest wage offer. There's also the business review, sports and weather in this Primetime News package, so stay with us. The news in detail right after this break. Welcome back to Primetime News and a special welcome to the viewers on onespotmedia.com. We begin with news that a section of the Falmouth Hospital in Trelawney was damaged this morning after the facility came under attack from relatives and friends of a man who died while undergoing treatment following a motor vehicle crash. On the heels of the incident, Chairman of the Falmouth Hospital, Kenneth Grant, says additional security measures will be put in place to protect staff. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell has more.
This glass door to the accident and emergency department was shattered by bottles and stones thrown by the irate friends of 34-year-old Dwayne Faulkner, who died following a motor vehicle crash. Hospital staff were forced to run for cover. 3 of them were injured in the attack. It's reported that shortly after 6 o'clock, 5 victims of a motor vehicle crash were rushed to the hospital for treatment following the mishap along the Martha Braid Main Road. Corporal Kirkland Cross, attached to the Falmouth Police Station, told TVJ News that Mr. Faulkner was driving his Nissan motor car from Duncan's to Martha Braid when the crash happened.
Reaching a certain section of the North Coast Highway in the vicinity of the overpass, Mr. Faulkner entered onto the slip road that takes you off the highway and crashed into a palm tree.
Mr. Faulkner died while undergoing treatment. His relatives and friends say his death could have been prevented if he was treated faster. It's why they decided to take matters into their own hands. Chairman of the Falmouth Hospital, Kenneth Grant, says while he sympathizes with the relatives of the deceased, he condemns the attack.
The damage, as you can see, to the A&E area, and 3 members of staff were injured in the melee. But what I have to say is that we cannot, as Jamaicans, everything we turn to violence. We don't believe in mediation and discussing matter and have it resolved. I know the members of staff must have did all their best to save the life of the person that died.
Mr. Grant says additional security will be put in place to protect staff at the Type C facility.
Security will be put in place to secure property and to secure members of staff, both security and medical staff. Measures will be put in place. But I just hope that we don't have a repeat and that people, think before they act.
Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
And in Santana, a 17-year-old student also lost her life today in an early morning motor vehicle crash on the Duns River Main Road. She's been identified as Denelson Kennelyn, a student of Rockabessa High School. Denelson resided at Mile End Ocheria, Santana. According to police reports, sometime after 4 this morning, Denelson was traveling in a motor car. While on the Duns River Main Road, the driver of the car lost control of the vehicle, which ran off the road into a ditch. Denelson sustained injuries to her head, while the driver sustained a broken right hand. They were both taken to the hospital where Denelson died while undergoing treatment. Contractor General Dirk Harrison has weighed in on the ongoing search for a new police commissioner. Mr. Harrison, who was speaking at a recent Kiwanis Club of Spanish Town meeting, said it does not matter whether the new commissioner is selected from within or outside of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. The details in this report. The search is now on for a permanent replacement for George Quelo, who recently left the police commissioner job. Deputy Commissioner Clifford Blake has been acting in the post since last month. Contractor General Dirk Harrison says it makes no difference whether the next top cop comes from within or outside of the force.
If the perceptions are anything to go by, and the anecdotal evidence is to be relied on, parts of the JCF are corrupted and beyond return to any normalcy anytime soon. So to bring somebody from outside to correct a formation or to have somebody from within try to correct the formation. If the formation is corrupted, you have to weed out the formation first.
Mr. Harrison says he's heard the argument that some possible candidates within the force cannot rise to the top post because of anecdotal or other evidence which suggests some adverse trace or taints.
If this is so, weed them out too. They should not be where they are in the first place if they have an adverse trace. So much so that we are concerned that they can't step further. They shouldn't be there. We need a strong and courageous Police Services Commission to weed out the persons herein.
In the meantime, the Contractor General sided with the chairman of the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, Professor Anthony Harriot's assessment of systemic corruption in the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Mr. Harriot, in a Gleaner article, described the JCF as toxic, stating that, quote, "The occupational culture of the JCF is one where you take the car and go off and drink rum and do no investigation," end quote.
What I would have done had I been so bold as to comment to say what Professor Harriot has said, I would have inserted the words, "some of the members are." Some of them stop. Because you and I know we could drive from here to Mandeville, and along the way, looking at the roadside, you and I know what we'll see. We could drive through St. Catherine, the cars are there at bars. We are just hypocrites. It happens, but nobody wants to admit it.
Mr. Harrison adds that there are many honest police officers, but until members are willing to acknowledge that some are corrupt, the leadership challenges will continue. And the National Security Minister, Robert Montague, is again insisting that the state of emergency in St. James has resulted in a significant reduction in violence and criminal activities in the parish. Mr. Montague toured the Market District of downtown Montego Bay yesterday with senior members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Since the start of the year, 13 people have been murdered in St. James. When 2017 ended, more than 300 people were killed in the parish. Last month, a state of emergency was imposed on the parish, something the National Security Minister insists has stemmed the bloodshed in St. James.
I think we have done very well. Overall, the message has been very congratulatory of the security forces from the ordinary people on the ground. And the administration is looking now at moving into the next phase, which is to getting the social intervention up. We are now moving to plan a conference. Well, we are in the final stages of planning a conference of the social agencies.
And the mayor of Montego Bay, Homer Davis, was also on the tour. He insists that vendors should use market spaces provided to maintain order in the town.
I must tell you, I'm very disappointed as to what I saw there today. And I make sure that I walk through the market. And I could have identified some 500 spaces in the market that they could be all fit into. And I can tell you, it won't be like that next week. They will have to go into the market. If the space wasn't there, then that would be a different matter. But we are going to enforce compliance. They have to go in the market. The space is there.
The Central Executive of the Police Federation has written to the Finance Ministry formally rejecting its latest wage offer. In a letter to the ministry on Wednesday, the Federation rejected the proposed 16% increase over 4 years. The Police Federation also expressed disappointment that the government has made no offer on allowances to the thousands of rank-and-file members of the force. A source close to the Federation told our news centre that a 4-year contract will never be accepted by the police. The police and government have been engaged in heated negotiations since last year. Thousands of police personnel went on sick out in December to protest against the slow pace of the negotiations. The Jamaica Constabulary Force today released the latest most wanted list of suspects who are being sought for questioning in relation to a string of major crimes across Jamaica. This comes as the Police High Command launches its Wanted Persons campaign for the Lent season. One female is also among those wanted by the police. TVJ's Giovanni Dennis has more.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force says its Wanted Persons campaign will run from today through Friday, March 30. The police have dubbed the offensive against wanted persons, "What Are You Giving Up for Lent?" The campaign urges Jamaicans to report wanted persons in their communities whose photographs will be promulgated daily via the various JCF social media pages. On the heels of the launch, the police have released a list of individuals who are wanted for several murders and other crimes across the island. In St. Mary, Charles Hamilton, otherwise called Tuggy Tuggy, is wanted for illegal possession of firearm and shooting with intent. He frequents Anoto Bay in the parish. In St. James, Nico Samuels, otherwise called Bowser, is wanted for murder. He frequents Jenkins Corner and Barrett Town in St. James, as well as Newland District and New Market in St. Elizabeth. Ryan Peterkin, otherwise called Ratty, is also wanted for murder and shooting. He's from Cambridge, St. James. Shani Luton is wanted for 2 counts of murder and illegal possession of firearm. He's from Farm Heights, St. James. Christopher Boyd, otherwise called Plank, who frequents Red Dirt, Rifle Lane and Central Avenue in St. James, is also wanted. In the St. Catherine North Division, Kalanji Tyrrell is wanted for murder. He frequents Bog Walk, St. Catherine. Akeem Johnson, otherwise called Bubba Sparks, is wanted for shootings, abduction, robbery and murder. He frequents Banana Lane, Lakespen, Quarry Hill and a new nursery in St. Catherine. Also wanted for murder is Orion Thomas, otherwise called Blue. He frequents Marchpen Road in St. Catherine. In the St. Catherine South Division, Ian Thomas, otherwise called Scally, is wanted for a triple murder. He frequents Gulf and Gregor Park in St. Catherine. In the Kingston West Police Division, Rory Headlam and Nicola da Costa are wanted for murder. Over in the Kingston East and Kingston Central Police Divisions, Brian Johnson, Bonnie Grant and Anthony Powell are being sought by police in connection with separate murder cases. Investigators assigned to the St. Anne, St. Andrew South, Westmoreland and the Clarendon Police are seeking a total of 5 suspects in connection with murder cases. They are Brian Forbes, Horace Raphael, Mark Wright, Burton Shearer and Othniel Smith. The police say they should turn themselves in immediately. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of these men is being asked to share information by calling the JCF tip line at 811, Crime Stop at 311, their nearest police station, or by using the Stay Alert app. Persons with information can also contact the CIB headquarters. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
There is concern this evening about the number of young people getting HIV. The concern was raised by Director for Health Promotion and Protection at the National Family Planning Board, Andrea Campbell, who spoke to TVJ News recently. Here's TVJ's Shamela Mitchell with that story.
In 2016, 2,015 persons were diagnosed with HIV when compared to 1,222 in 2015. That's a 39% increase. According to Director for Health Promotion and Protection at the National Family Planning Board, Andrea Campbell, more young people are getting the virus.
Of the new cases, though, 26% were in the 20 to 29 age group. So which means that our young persons are becoming infected. We are seeing KSA, St. Catherine and St. James has 63% of all cases. So we're still looking at those as high prevalence parishes.
Ms. Campbell says there are key populations that the Family Planning Board is focusing on at this time.
So we look at the MSM group with a 32% prevalence rate. We look at inmates with a 3% prevalence rate and our female sex workers with a 2% prevalence, which is higher than the national prevalence of 1.6.
She says the aim is to achieve the UNAIDS 90-90-90 target, which means that by 2020, among other things, 90% of all people living with HIV will know their status. She points out that at present, Jamaica is only at 85% of the target.
We have 5% more to go within, 3 years? So we're on our way to that. The second 90 is that 90% of those who are diagnosed are on treatment. So for that, we're a bit low. We're at 45% for that. And for retained in care, for the whole idea is that the third 90 is that they should be virally suppressed.
There is an estimated 30,000 people living with HIV in Jamaica. Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
5 days after fire destroyed the St. Anne's Bay Methodist Church in St. Anne, church members are already talking about plans to rebuild. Today, the first Sunday since the fire, church members were inconvenienced, but that did not deter them from worshiping.
February 20, 2018 will be a day that will forever be etched in the minds of church members at the St. Anne's Bay Methodist Church. It's the first Sunday since fire destroyed the church. Members gathered in the church hall for worship. It's an incident church members say they will never forget.
All those who know, experience life and love in the St. Anne's Bay Methodist Church, whether they are here today or abroad, are all grieving in a very deep way when we remember what the church was.
And already church members are talking about plans to rebuild.
We know that God is not contained by walls. That's the first thing. So it's a chapel. The church is really the people, and the church stands strong. I envisage a rebuilding process of somewhere between 2 and 5 years. And I think we should be up and going.
Erwin Clare, who is visiting from the United States, used to attend the church. He says church members will be getting help from people living overseas. He believes the building will be rebuilt long before the estimated time period.
So this church is very close to us. Many of our members from New York are also members here now from St. John's. So yes, I'm quite certain that we will be doing something, and there are opportunities for all of us to play our part, because the idea here is that when one aspect of the family is hurting, the rest of the family's responsibility is to ensure that that hurt is being satisfied.
Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
And that's the local segment of Primetime News. The business review and international news. Please stay with us. They're next. The business review this week looks at the Paymaster business model and its sustainability in the new digital world. With that, here's Dashan Hendricks.
Paymaster launching a new logo last week with an eye on the future of its payment services in a market in which its model faces threats from direct online payment systems. Amidst all that, how has the business been doing?
I'm very sure our operations are very relevant. The growth of our operations is relevant in terms of the online space, because as consumers converge towards credit card, we are there. At present, for the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen over 100% growth actually in terms of the number of our online transactions, and we've made a deliberate effort to start reaching out to the diaspora so that they can be aware of the site. We've even created a mobile app for their convenience so that they can make their payments, because we know that's where it's going.
But given the threats the business faces from online and mobile payment options, how sustainable is its walk-in payment model?
The walk-in model is sustainable because it will take quite a while for persons to converge electronically. We do anticipate that over time, the walk-in customer base will diminish, and so therefore we have a suite of services that will still keep the walk-in customers coming in, for example the remittance services and other services. And as we go along, we do introduce other services to ensure that we get the foot traffic, recognizing that the walk-in customer base will not be enough for future sustainability.
The company says it has been building out its client base. 20 years on from when it first began with one client and one location, Paymaster now has over 200 locations and more than 100 billers, gas stations, supermarkets and post offices among location choices, making the service convenient for all.
So you're going to be seeing more of us in the marketplace, more products, more services, more advertising, more global reach, and a lot of new things coming in the future.
The company says it also has eyes and plans in the embryonic stages for expansion in the Caribbean in the near future. Its future, though, being to move into the digital space in an era in which it is even competing with banks' online payment systems. It means it must be prudent to survive.
Exciting for Paymaster is the increased number of schools and the microfinance companies that have joined us over the last few years, and or re-entry into the remittance market. In the latter part of last year, we also partnered with Courts and Singer Jamaica.
Talks are also being held about encashing checks, but like Paymaster's evolving model, that's for the future. But that's the Business Review. I'm Dashan Hendricks. Good evening.